Dobbs drops back, fires long for the end zone. The pass is going to be caught by Tennessee. Tennessee wins! Caught by Tennessee. Jawan Jennings. What a turn of events. To the checkerboards. Touchdown, Tennessee.
Rock Solid Sports, the only show with a home field advantage for UT Athletics. Here's tonight's host.
Hello and welcome in, everybody, to Rock Solid Sports here on this Friday night on Rocky Top. I'm your host, Jack Foster, joined alongside Griffin Hadley in studio. We got Jace Brown and Justin Clemmer across the glass, and we got Riley Haltom on StreamYard. We got a fun show planned for you tonight, and guys, it is great to be back. This is going to be your Friday Five for this semester, us five rocking with you guys every Friday night. Can't wait to bring some good Tennessee sports talk all fall long, as, man, it's the best time of the season in the sports world, isn't it, Griffin?
Talking season is almost over, and it feels so good to be back in studio with you guys. I'm pumped to be able to be here every week, and this Friday show is fun. It's got a fun environment because we're able to preview a fantastic weekend of football each and every week for you guys.
Absolutely. But before we get into it tonight, we do have to start the show on a solemn note, as we're going to remember Ben from the swimming coach's son, Ben, and I'm going to hand it over to Griffin because he's obviously with the swimming program, and I know this is really important to him. Just a tragic loss.
Yeah, so unfortunately last week, one of our WTK family members, Ben Kredich, passed away, and Ben was son of Matt and Kim Kredich, Matt being the head swimming and diving coach here at the University of Tennessee, and this one's close to home for me just because I am a member of that team here on campus, and I just wanted to give Ben his time here on WTK because he was in studio all the time, and Benny brought the Kredich family in and gave Ben an opportunity, and Ben was really inspirational as he was a member of the intellectual disability community. And Ben was a twin to Miles, brother to Coleman, and he just brought so much joy to this station, and he loved music. So we'll remember you, Ben. You touched so many people. You had brought a light, and your just impact on everybody was so unique. I know I have so many Ben stories. So thank you, Ben, and we're so grateful, and I know Benny is as well, for your impact here at the station.
Absolutely. Well said, Griffin. We will all miss Ben dearly at WTK after his loss, a tragic loss at that. So let's go ahead and get into it. We do have a fun show planned for you guys tonight. We're going to be talking a lot of ball football as, man, the season is 8 days away. Less than that. I mean, if you want to get right frank with it. Next Saturday, toe meets leather in Nissan Stadium when Tennessee takes on Virginia to open the season. Going to be a fun one. Probably a blowout. Not going to be a really interesting week one game. And we're going to get more to a preview next week. But first, guys, I want to talk about this team in general, kind of do a season preview, if you will. We'll get into record predictions a little later and some fill in the blank round, play a fun game after the break. And I'm going to start with my man, Jace. Jace, I want to know, when you look at this Tennessee football team heading into this season, what's a position group you are just excited to watch this year?
You know, Griffin touched on it earlier. No, wide receiver is obviously the one most people are most excited about because, you know, we get the big plays. We were able to see guys like Cedric Tillman, who didn't get to play too much last year, of course, but Jalen Hyatt, the standout last year, just ball out. But I'm going to go with the running backs. You know, we've got, it feels like a barn back there. You know, got a lot of young guys with Cam Seldon joining us. Deshaun Bishop obviously out with an injury, but of course we've got the all SEC, whatever you want to call them, duo back there with Jalen Wright and Jabari Small, and you throw freshman Cam Seldon back there and Khalifa Keith. Those guys are dogs from what I've seen from their high school stuff, and of course Josh Heupel has nothing but good stuff to say about all those guys. So it should be really, really interesting to see who wins out those reps throughout this season.
Yeah, and that's a great point because it's going to be interesting to see how the rotation works in the running back room. I mean, obviously, we're running a super fast-paced offense. Don't really have much time for subs. So is it going to be – it's last year was really just a two-back rotation between Wright and Small, and we just got a little taste of Dylan Sampson. I'm really interested in how we integrate Sampson more and potentially Seldon.
Yeah, Riley, when you look at this three-headed monster Tennessee has in Jabari Small, Jalen Wright, and Dylan Sampson, I mean, we're talking about a guy in Jalen Wright who, if it wasn't for fumbling issues last year, could have had a mega breakout 2022 campaign. You know, Jabari Small's Mr. Dependable when it comes to pass blocking in short yardage situations. And then Dylan Sampson's kind of that explosive guy. I mean, he averaged 6.8 yards per carry last year. I think big things are in store for him this fall. Riley, your take on this three-headed monster Tennessee has?
Yeah, it's definitely a scary sight for opposing defenses. Three guys that all in their own way can hurt you differently, can absolutely gash you up the middle, can, run right through you. Jalen Wright got incredible balance. Again, like you said, if he could clean up those fumbles, totally set for an absolute breakout. And I think with the whole, summer, because that's going to be what they were working with him on, is holding on to the football and maintaining possession right there. Jalen Wright, I think, set for a huge season, and I'm excited to watch it.
Yeah, Riley, you nailed it on the head, and I think I'll supplement that with I think Dylan Sampson has that fierce competitive nature to him. And Jack, you talk about him being explosive. I think he's also hungry. When he gets the ball, whenever he touched the ball last season, which wasn't that many carries, he took advantage of it. So what does that look like this year in a system where I think Heupel's going to want to run the ball even more, establish that part of the game? It could be really, really exciting for this offense.
Yeah, man. I mean, when you look across the SEC too, it's just exciting that I really don't see a way where Tennessee doesn't have a top 5 rushing offense in the SEC. I mean, I look at Ole Miss. Quinshon Judkins could win the Heisman this year if everything falls his way. So he's a dude. Rocket Sanders at Arkansas, he's a dude. But outside of those two teams, I mean, Tennessee's competing with the best of the best in the SEC in terms of rushing production. And that's really good when you got a guy like Joe Milton back there this year who's not as good with his legs as Hendon.
Not as good, but I wouldn't sell him short either. I think he's a very athletic guy in the pocket, and he can move around. Is he Hendon Hooker? No. Is he going to take one outside and go for 25 yards? Probably not as often. However, I think running back by committee is an exciting place to be in. When you have guys that you can rely on, and it's not just one Quinshon Judkins or what have you, I think it's exciting for the coaching staff, exciting for the offense, knowing that you have options, and all three of your runners run in different ways. They have a different way of attacking the game, and I think that's a huge advantage for an offense.
Justin, give me a position group you are just excited to watch this year. Can't wait.
Well, it's got to be the secondary. I mean, the DB room has to be
okay.
Well, it has to be better.
Like
that's why I'm excited to see it, because it was pretty porous last year. It really has to be better in order for us to attain our goals. I'm really looking at Tamarion McDonald. Is he playing the star position?
Yeah,
this year?
he's locked in at the start. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's going to be really exciting. He only had one pick last year, but I think he's going to be making a lot more plays. Yeah, and then we have that new transfer from Georgia Tech, Wesley. What's his first name?
Wesley Walker. He played last year, and he's a PFF darling. Best safety in college football last year in terms of PFF grade.
Well, perfect. Yeah, and
talking about an all-star here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see that, because I mean, you just got to imagine if our secondary can improve and we can hold offenses to, just not, of course, less points, but just to punts really, and just have the ball in our offense, in the hands of our offense more, in Joe Milton's hands. These running backs we just talked about, and these receivers we're going to talk about. I mean, that's what I'm looking forward to, and I think, many of us Tennessee fans, we're SEC fans. Offense, has kind of been the new thing, especially with us lately. But, we all love a good defensive battle, and we really got to bring it to team stories this year. And it's going to start by shutting down the pass.
Talked to Tim Banks today. He had a press conference kind of wrapping up, fall camp, if you will, on the defensive side of things. And he talked about how there's going to be a ton of rotation in the secondary. And outside of Tank, McCullough, of course, seasoned guy, that there's not going to be, a guy who's going to play a lot, just an overwhelming amount of snaps outside of Tank. And that kind of gave me some pause, because that means there's not a lot of separation going on inside the secondary. And I almost take that as a little bit of a worry, because if there hasn't been any guys that have separated, we're talking about a lot of returners, such as a Kamal Haddon, a Brandon Turnage, Warren Burrell coming off injury. So if there's no guys that have separated, if this rotation is still 6-7 deep and we're working in freshmen potentially, I just don't see a way where Tennessee secondary is going to improve by that much. I'm excited about what Wesley Walker brings to the table. Excited about Danico Slaughter this year. But I don't know. Just as a whole, I still am a little wary about how good they can be.
Yeah, it's tricky, because you think about it, and you think about just having a lack of separation. You can look at it one of two ways. It can be nerve-wracking, or it can be a little bit exciting, just knowing that the team is trying to improve and that the veterans are trying to teach the young guys. Because what is Josh Heupel doing right now? He's recruiting really well. And he's bringing in guys who are probably better than the guys that came into this program before them. You got 3 stars in the program. Now you're bringing in 4 and 5 stars. So that's kind of an interesting dynamic. And people who are in the system are able to teach these guys who are studs coming in about the system and kind of the lay of the land. So it is pretty interesting to think about 6, 7, 8 guys getting playing time, because you want those everyday starters that you know, that you love, that can get the job done. However, I think with a couple games at the beginning of the season where you have a little bit of room to figure it out, that's where hopefully you see Tennessee make jumps in the defensive sector.
Yeah, you talk about the first couple of weeks. I'm a believer that Tennessee's easiest 2 games on the schedule are the first 2 games. UConn was a bowl team last year. UTSA is one of the best G5 schools in America. Virginia and Austin Peay are their 2 easiest games. The Tennessee may outscore both of them combined by 100 points. Like that's a legit possibility. So, I don't know. Maybe they get some things ironed out, but I just kind of expected Gabe Judy-Lally to maybe become one of the top corners already by the start of the season. Maybe Danico Slaughter take a bigger step, but we'll just have to see when the season starts. I'm going to go over to Riley. Riley, give me a position group you're kind of worried about. Maybe you're pumping the brakes on a little bit. We talked about the secondary. That was certainly mine. Give me one for you.
I feel like it's kind of a popular pick at this point, but man, it's the offensive line. There's a lot of question marks there. Some new guys that are coming in that you don't really know how they're going to perform. Particularly, I look at like John Campbell Sr., Cooper Mays, Ollie Lane. Some guys that you don't really know how they're going to perform once they really get in there with this unit. And I feel like it is the weakest part of the offense, save for maybe the tight end room. But with the experience you got there, I'm going to lean towards the offensive line. A lot of questions there, lots of potential for a step back for the offensive line.
Say it. What? Cooper Mays?
I mean, yeah.
That's
What worries me about Cooper Mays is because of the injury.
Because of he hasn't been in camp. Like
Yes,
I think
exactly.
for Coop, like I talked to someone who's kind of training behind Addison Nichols about, and he's been really great with the media and different things. He's been talking about how he's gotten time at center, backup center. He's also gotten time at guard, and so it's an interesting idea to think about these guys moving all over the place and not really specializing, because in the SEC, the run block is everything because you have so many guys that are trying to get Joe Milton on the floor, trying to stop the run, trying to stop an offense that was number 1 in the country. If you don't think there's a target on the Tennessee offensive back, especially this Tennessee offensive line like Riley was talking about, you're wrong, because there's a huge, huge, huge target on the offensive line's back.
And even more importantly this year, Jace, like I mentioned a little bit with Joe Milton's mobility, he can be a statue at times. I mean, we saw it in the Clemson game. That was a great game. Bazooka Joe, for all intents and purposes. But he took some bad sacks in that game, and that's something that worries me about Joe Milton's game. And if the offensive line is suspect, man, those issues are just going to compound. And I still am fairly confident in the interior offensive line. I think Ollie Lane, he's won the job, the left guard spot. We know what Spraggins and Mays bring to the table. Obviously, when healthy, those guys could be all SEC players this year. Definitely the tackle spots, though, I'm worried about. I thought Gerald Mincy was going to make the transition to right tackle and seamlessly do it so and become the starter. That's not happening. He's backing up John Campbell at left tackle, and it seems J.J. Crawford is running away with the right tackle job. That worries me a little bit. I don't know, Jace. This offensive line, it does give me a fuzzy feeling.
Yeah, exactly. You hit exactly what I was thinking. Those tackle spots are the ones I'm most worried about. Of course, we saw Crawford and Mincy out there last year. Of course, we had Darnell Wright, the top 10 pick back there to anchor that right side of that line. But besides that, there was no true left tackle that we really got to see last year. Of course, we started seeing Crawford out there a little bit more.
It was a healthy rotation.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a rotation with those guys. But now with Campbell thrown in the mix and Darnell in the NFL, like you said, who's going to step up into that right tackle spot? Like you said, Gerald Mincy's behind Campbell right now in the left tackle spot. Again, that I don't know. It just
felt like he should have been the starting right tackle. No
absolutely. That shouldn't have been
left side. Move over.
I mean, just swap the feet. It can't be that bad,
Yeah, and that's a great point. And I really like what Jack said, talking about the pocket poise of Joe Milton. That's one of the most underrated things when you look at a quarterback and you're just evaluating just how they perform, because it's so important. I mean, you look at Hendon Hooker last year. How many times did he extend plays? I mean, Joe Milton's got to be able to dance around the pocket a little bit, pick up where maybe the line is lacking, and just avoid sacks, really, because those are simply just drive killers.
Well, Griffin, I know you're excited about one specific position group on Tennessee's offense. We've touched on the offensive line. We've touched on, Joe Milton. We've touched on the running backs. Give me the one you're most excited about.
Yeah, I'm pumped for the wide receivers because I just think it's such an interesting dynamic where you have, in my head, you have 4 guys that could see the field right now and they could start every single play. And then you also have the rest, and they can also play at a super high level based on watching camp, based on watching their place on the team after really red shirts and whatnot. But just thinking about Deontay Thornton in the slot and standing as tall as he is what is it, 6'5", and being so quick off the line. And then also having Drew McCoy on the edge, Ramel Keaton on the edge. But like you said before the show, Jack, Squirrel White he could have a huge year. You think about the role Jalen Hyatt was in last year and what he's doing now in the NFL. Squirrel White is a similar type player to Hyatt. And we saw the Milton White shirts and the memes and everything with Joe Milton and Squirrel White. So I think it's the most exciting because of the talent. The talent is unbelievable, and I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say as well, just because there's so many different angles to take with this group, and I think the potential to repeat or to excel with the offense that Tennessee had last year, it's there because of this group.
Yeah, there's so much talent, there's not enough playing time to go around. I'm struggling to figure out who's going to get more slot reps because I feel like Ramel Keaton has earned, a starting number 2 receiver role for this Tennessee offense on the outside of, with Brew McCoy. And Brew McCoy is obviously the alpha at the wide receiver position in this offense. But when you look at the slot position, Squirrel White was awesome in the Orange Bowl and he looked to be poised for a breakout season. But Deontay Thornton may be too good to where you can't take him off the field.
I mean, with that size and ability to like stretch the field, even from that slot receiver spot is just crazy. Griffin was hitting on it earlier. The dude is crazy fast. He's crazy huge. And Squirrel White, of course, we know he's got burners. Like you said, that position battle is going to be crazy. Like we hit on earlier before the show, we have at some point, it'd be stupid to not throw Thornton out on the edge and just get him on a go route at least one time just to test the waters,
Right.
But it's just going to be tough. I'd like to see both of them out there at the same time, like Griffin said earlier, just banging routes against each other to see what happens. But,
I'll put it this way. I think Deontay Thornton has more potential to reach the Hyatt highs than Squirrel White does.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just feels like, Squirrel White's a little too small. And my coworker, Ryan Shumpert, has made this point time and time again. It almost felt like every time Squirrel got loose and was behind the secondary, when Joe Milton passed him in the chest, he'd fall down. He's so small, and that ball's coming in so fast. So maybe that's a point to be made. I don't know. And, check in Deontay Thornton's favor. But it just feels like Thornton could blow up.
And just kind of a temperature check real quick from what I've seen, it just really feels like Thornton has been besides Joe Milton, obviously, he's been the most hyped up player in this offense. Would you agree, Jack?
I don't know.
Everything you've seen?
It's tough to say hyped up. I mean, maybe the most interested to watch just because he's a newcomer.
He's the shiny new toy. Yeah,
exactly. Yes, that's what he is. But I mean, you look at I think Jalen Wright probably would fit that mold just because he's had such a good camp. He's fixed the fumbling issues. He could just be a dog. And then Brew McCoy slimmed up, man. He just.
I mean, we haven't even talked about him. He was elite last year, and he almost didn't have the opportunity. Riley, I'm interested to hear what you have to say about this wide receiver group. It's crazy. There's so much depth. What you thinking?
Yeah, I'm glad you guys touched on Deontay Thornton because that's been the guy that going in, as soon as I heard the transfer, I looked up who he is, what he does, watched the highlights and whatever. I was like, okay, this is what I need. This is what I wanted to see. This is the kind of reload at the wide receiver position that I wanted to see Josh Heupel do. And the perfect way to do it through the transfer portal, getting a guy like Deontay Thornton who has that speed and something that Squirrel White doesn't have, like you mentioned, that frame that Deontay Thornton has. So important.
Talk about replacing production. They got to replace a lot in the pass rush because of Byron Young leaving. This is the guy that led the team in sacks by, I think, 4. I think he had 7 sacks. The next closest was 3. So, Griffin, when you look at this pass rush, and Omari Thomas is beating the ground this offseason, that they want to do a better job getting after the quarterback before. And that's just been a main emphasis in their offseason. Tim Bates talked about it. Heupel's talked about it. Who do you think could lead this team in sacks with that pass rush? We think it's Tyler Barron. I think Josh Josephs does it. I think he takes a big step. Of course, you got Roman Harrison in the mix as well.
Yeah, there's so many guys, and you really don't know sometimes who could take a jump once playing starts, just competitive nature coming through. I do like Tyler Barron. I think he's explosive. I think he's got a potential to be a really staple guy on this team, on this defense. But it's tricky because I think something that's very important for this team is the production from the front 7, putting the defense in a better position than they were last year. Because we talked about the nerves of the secondary. How can the front seven help the secondary? How can this defense help each other? Because if you're able to stop the run and you're able to rush the passer, it just could be a better situation for this defense. And I think it's a combination of the pass rush, of the linebacker unit, and the interior offensive line, which could be extremely explosive with Big O, with Garland, but with Elijah Simmons on the bench for the next 5 weeks at least, it could be an interesting dynamic there up front.
Yeah, I think from that Leo spot, Roman Harrison, I think, is an underrated player on Tennessee's defense. The twitch he has is unmatched. He made a big impact in a lot of games last season. And when you look beyond that, Josh Josephs, James Pierce entering big sophomore seasons. Josh Josephs looks like an animal. Talked to Amari Thomas about him at the SEC Media Days, and he just said Josh Josephs is going to be a dude this year. And, of course, Barron is the experienced guy who's probably going to lead the team in tackles for loss. So that's an interesting one to keep an eye on. If I had to pick a position group I'm most intrigued to watch, maybe it's that, and just specifically how Tennessee can affect the pass moving forward. All right, guys, when we come back from break here on RSS, we're going to play some Fill in the Blank. You excited, Griffin?
I'm pumped.
We're going to get into
Let's go.
Let's go. We're going to talk some schedule.
Games.
We're going to talk some Joe Milton coming up here on Rock Solid Sports.
Volunteer Radio receives support from Tennessee Smokies Baseball, the AA Southern League affiliate of the Chicago Cubs, whose 2023 regular season schedule features 6-game homestands Tuesdays through Sundays at nearby Smoky Stadium in Kodak against the Chattanooga Lookouts, Mississippi Braves, Birmingham Barons, and more. WUTK's Rock Solid Sports covers Smokies baseball all season long. SmokiesBaseball.com. Link up at WUTKRadio.com.
The Rock thanks Cool Beans, 1817 Lake Avenue, 1 block south of the Strip, for sponsoring and hosting Monday night Rock Solid Sports broadcast at 7 p.m. Cool Beans is the campus headquarters for food, brews, pool, shot starts, sports, and more fun. Tuesday night is team trivia night, and Thursday nights are for bingo. CoolBeansBar.com or their Facebook page for more info.
90.3 The Rock thanks the UT Athletic Department for their support. The 2023 football Vols will play home games at Neyland Stadium against SEC rivals South Carolina, Georgia, Texas A&M, and others. Allballs.com for info, with a link at WUTKRadio.com. UT student ticket info is at bigorangetics.utk.edu. 90.3 The Rock says, Go Balls!
Support for WUTK comes from Fieldhouse Social, the modern sports bar next to campus at University Commons. Fieldhouse Social serves American craft fare such as burgers, wings, and more with high tops around the bar, a separate dining area, and a center lounge with leather chairs and couches in front of their 23-foot LED TV wall for Tennessee and pro sports. Fieldhouse Social is an outdoor patio with trivia twice a week and sponsors Wednesday's Rock Solid Sports. FieldhouseSocial.com.
This is Toots, and I want you to tune in at 90.3 Rock, #1 station, the Rudy Nation, reggae.
Rock thanks the One Knox Sporting Club soccer team for their support. One Knox plays all of their home matches at Regal Soccer Stadium on campus, and the season runs into October, with matches against Memphis, Chattanooga, Lexington, and more USL League One opponents. Tickets, including UT student tickets and game day info, is at oneknoxsc.com. WTK is proud to be a media partner with One Knox. Rock Solid Sports will be keeping up with One Knox Soccer all season long. One Knox SC. We are one.
Hi, this is Derek and Rob from the Funhouse. It was brought to our attention that our show and the things that we do could be seen as childish and not funny, sophomoric, vapid, stupid, and a complete and utter waste of time.
We strive to bring you the most entertaining radio that we're capable of each and every week.
So won't you please continue to support us and the station? Tune in every Friday night from 8 to 10 p.m. only on 90.3 The Rock. The Funhouse. Syphilis free since 2013.
Stop by the Funhouse Friday nights from 8 till 10 only on 90.3 The Rock.
The Funhouse is proudly sponsored by Raven Records and Rarities and Happy Holler, providing Knoxville with vinyl and more for nearly 40 years. And by ScruffyCity.com, your downtown destination.
Volunteer Radio thanks the UT Athletic Department and the men's basketball program for their support. Coach Barnes' 9th season on the Summit includes home games against Kentucky, Vandy, and more at Thompson Bowling Arena. Allballs.com. Student ticket info and login is at bigorangetics.utk.edu. utk.edu. That's TIX. Volunteer Radio says, go Vols basketball.
All right, everybody, welcome back into the Friday night edition of Rock Solid Sports here on WUTK. I'm your host, Jack Foster, joined alongside my guy, Griffin Hadley. We got Riley Haltom on StreamYard. We also got Jace Brown and Justin Clemmer. It is your Friday night crew here for the rest of the semester. Couldn't be more excited to talk some Tennessee sports all fall long. So let's jump in. We're going to get to this Shefty bomb later on of Trey Lance getting traded.
Is it a bomb, though? We'll
get
to it later.
A little bit. We'll get to it. So some NFL news to get to in segment 3 for sure. Little teaser. But we got to play some fill in the blank regarding Tennessee football coming up this season. Griffin, I'm going to start it with you, my guy. An interesting question here off the top. If Joe Milton reaches his potential, meaning if Joe Milton makes minimal mistakes, is very efficient, pretty much close to as good as Hendon Hooker, which I feel like is maybe his ceiling. I think that's probably his ceiling.
Yeah.
So, take that with a little bit of a grain of salt. But if Joe Milton reaches his potential, Tennessee will win blank games this season.
If Joe Milton plays at that level with this offense around him and with the defense that we've seen in camp, Tennessee can win 11 games. If Joe Milton wins the Heisman, plays at the highest level in the country, I don't think Tennessee can win 12 games because of their schedule. I think there's too many intimidating opponents, which we'll get to.
Right.
But and I think 11's probably pretty generous based off last year. Last year was incredible. It was low. It was a surprise. However, I think Joe Milton, with his frame, with his potential, with the arm strength, if he does, I say 11 games, and we'll throw it around.
So is that the Georgia or Bama? Which one they win it?
I think they're winning Georgia.
Okay.
I think it's going to be really tough to go into Tuscaloosa and win. But, this is all speculation. This is tough. Me saying 11 games is tough. But if Joe Milton plays at his potential in Neyland against Georgia, that could be a win.
Jason, Justin, what we got?
I'm pretty close to Griffin on that one. I think I would probably have to go 10 only because there's some, like Griffin said, we'll hit on it later. There's some sketchy road games that we've got. Georgia, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to keep up with that squad, of course. But on the side of Joe Milton, like you said, if he can play up to just anything remotely close to what Hendon Hooker, I'm so sorry, I'm just blanking over here. If he can play remotely close to right there and with any slight improvement on that defense, I can see us easily winning 10 games. I'm hoping we don't drop just a random one like we did last year to South Carolina. That was just a worst case scenario with that one. But I think with the offensive tools that he's got in the backfield with him and on the outer edges with the wide receivers, there's no reason that we shouldn't get back to 10 wins this year.
Yeah, I'm going to say 10 too. It's because to me, it's really not all about Joe Milton. I think he will reach his potential this year. I think what we saw in the Clemson game is what we'll get most of the time with Joe Milton. And there may be an occasional game or two where maybe just a big play by the receivers, the running back bail him out. But yeah, I'm worried about the game in Bama. I mean, obviously Georgia too. It's going to be tough. And then obviously, like you said, there could be one of those random games. Hopefully Drinkwitz in Missouri don't take us down or Florida or anything. But I mean, we never expected South Carolina to. But it's so much more than Joe Milton about his potential for us to reach 11 games and so forth.
Yeah, I'm with Griffin. I'm gonna say it's 11 games, and for the same reason, I think they can win. If Joe Milton is playing at his highest level, they can win 11 games, maybe drop one in Tuscaloosa because that's a tough place to play. That will probably be at night. It's going to be a tough game for the Vols, and I think they can overcome the hurdle that is Georgia in Neyland with the SEC East potentially on the line. That's a major game, and it's a chance for him to really live up to the moment.
There's no doubt home field advantage in college athletics plays such a huge factor in everything, right? We saw it last year.
In Knoxville, especially.
Yeah,
kidding me?
Especially Neyland. But, man, it feels like the general consensus among everybody I talk to is that Tennessee has a better chance to beat Georgia than Alabama. I get it's at home, but, man, Alabama has no quarterback. What are they going to start? Jalen Milroe? Ty Simpson? The reports are that Buckner's a distant third.
Yes,
so
yeah.
I don't know. I know they're changing their offense. I know Tommy Reese is going to be more conservative. Run the ball. Play defense.
Basic, classic
They
Alabama.
got dudes, but man, the roster is just vastly better for Georgia than Alabama. I know it's in Tuscaloosa, but I still am 1 million years taking Tennessee's chances to beat Alabama and Tuscaloosa than over Georgia. Georgia got better. People aren't talking about it.
And they have the
Carson Beck is
easiest
more
schedule.
talented than Sesabit. He may not be as much of a gamer yet. We don't know, but he is more talented. They got 2 great wide receivers out of the portal. Brock Bowers is still the best offensive weapon in all of college football. Got a good running game. I just don't see how anyone beats me.
But what's your number?
Oh, my number is 11. Okay. Yeah, no, they can beat Alabama if Joe Milton reaches his potential. My number is a national championship victory because on a neutral site, Tennessee could, I don't know, maybe not. I should not say that because I was just talking about it. That doesn't make any sense. But no, it's a national championship appearance. I'll put it that way. But it's 11 wins in the regular season is their ceiling no matter what to me.
And that's a fantastic question.
Yeah.
Got another one?
Yeah, I got another one, Griffin. You want to start it off again?
Sure.
Sounds like you want to.
Yeah.
All right. So outside of Georgia and Bama, which we covered, the one game that you're most nervous about on Tennessee's schedule is blank.
Is Kentucky on the road. And I would say Texas A&M, but I think it's like a sneaky, what people like to call a trap game. I don't like using that phrase, but I think Leary could be good. I think Kentucky could be good. I think they could be out for blood. Tennessee embarrassed Kentucky last year. That's the only way to describe it. Fowler and Herb Street were fishing for things to talk about. In quarter number 3, it was that bad. And so I think this Kentucky team could be improved. Do I think Tennessee's going to drop that game? No, I don't. But do I think that is one that's on my radar a little bit? And did I want to pick a road game? Absolutely.
That's fair. Justin, Jace, what we got?
I mean, I think the obvious one here for me is Florida for sure. Of course, last year wasn't their year. They're losing Anthony Richardson. This year's not looking too bright, at least preseason for these guys. But we haven't won a game there in, almost 20 years, if not 20 years. It's crazy. It's like they always have our number down there. We broke a streak of 11 straight losses in 2016, broke another one this past year of a good extra 5 on there. I think Florida is one that we have been overlooking this entire offseason, I think. They always play us well down there, and they always just seem to have our number. Again, Peyton never beat them. It's ridiculous. Peyton never beat Florida.
Yes,
but this is a different team. I know. But, it's the Swamp. It's, they've become a more prominent program since the 90s. It's just that game feels like our trap game early, and if we lose that, I don't want to know. I don't want to find out what spiral is possible to fall down.
Jace has been watching too much Swamp Kings. Let's get you.
I haven't touched it yet.
Sure sounds like because Florida's a 4-win team this year. I'm gonna tell you right now.
Wow. Really? Okay.
Yeah. No, I was talking about this.
Are we going to be one of those 4 then?
No.
The swamp is tough, but this.
Dude,
it's a bad team.
It's
a bad team. It's a
Florida
bad
could
team.
finish last in the East, and I would not be surprised.
I mean, yeah,
Serious.
but I mean,
they could have the worst quarterback play in the conference.
we haven't beat them down there in 20 years.
I don't care.
I know.
We hadn't beat Alabama.
They got a Sunbelt Billy and a Wisconsin transfer who was terrible in the Big Ten. Let's get real.
I'm just saying, it's such a Tennessee thing to do. It's a Tennessee
one of their running
thing
backs
to do.
banged up.
Hey, but Florida is personal for me. I've cried one time during a professional sport, or just a sporting game, and it was 2016 when we were up with 10 seconds left. Felipe Franks throws it down the field. For some reason, we're running cover 2 man, and then they just somehow they got a receiver wide open in the end zone.
Because that's 16 balls.
Yeah, that was Butch Jones balls. We forgot to play prevent defense. I'm only worried about that one because of how much I hate Florida and how much it would destroy me if we lost to them, and that would just continue the streak. And then there's South Carolina too. It's early in the year. We're probably gonna smack them. Honestly,
Is your game Florida?
I'm gonna say Florida just because of my memories with Florida, and not even because I'm worried about it. It's just the downside of losing to Florida.
We saw how close we got to losing that game late last year. They scored those back-to-back
they also had a top
touchdowns
5
late.
pick.
I mean,
they got that dog.
I mean, we had Hendon. We still almost let it go.
We're not talking about Tennessee here. We're talking about Florida.
I just hate Florida
Because they're in the fishbowl.
Listen, no. If Alabama
there's-
was bad and we would go to Tuscaloosa and play them, and then we were still on a big losing streak on the road to them, I would still say Bama. It's just how much I hate these teams. Like it's more than just on paper. It's just like the emotional aspect towards it, Jack.
Let me tell you. So, yeah, I understand Gainesville has been a house of horrors for the last 20 years. I totally get that. And if you ask me, hey, what is the most important game for Tennessee to win this year? I might put Florida number one just to get rid of those demons.
And
right?
it's top
Just
three.
Get over the
It's
hump.
top three.
It's easily up there.
Just
for
so you
the
can say
one
Heupel's
that we
won in
gotta get.
Gainesville.
It's just a lot of stink with that
20-year streak.
matchup. Like,
Yes.
it stink.
But I'm telling you, as far as difficulty, Florida isn't sniffing the top half in Tennessee's schedule. South Carolina's more difficult. Kentucky, UTSA is more difficult.
better.
A November trip to Como when it's going to be freezing is more difficult than Florida, in my opinion.
Sounds dangerous.
So I get it that it's important to win, but man, as far as get worried about it, come on.
What does Riley got?
Riley, what we got?
So I think Kentucky is by far the scariest one. I'm going to say that's what I'm worried about. But if we're going with a little dark horse pick, UTSA. UTSA, I think, could definitely be one that sneaks up on the Vols. That's one that, like, if you look at some of the Vols teams of the past, there's always one game that they drop that they shouldn't drop. We talk about this all the time. There's one game that just should not be lost that gets lost, and UTSA feels like that game this year. Could also see maybe Eli Drinkwitz in Missouri doing a little something down there, but as bad as the Vols beat them last year, I don't see it happening. So I think by far Kentucky is the one I'm worried about the most, but UTSA also could be sneaky.
That makes a lot of sense. And Devin Leary and Frank Harris, UTSA's quarterback, are the two best quarterbacks Tennessee will probably face this season. And Frank Harris is a dude. He is arguably the best player in program history at UTSA. And I really think Devin Leary could return to his 2021 self at Kentucky. And don't forget, they're bringing back Liam Cohen, who was OC when Kentucky won 10 games in 21. And they were a dumpster fire last year. I don't think Will Levis is good, but I don't credit to him like just falling off in terms of his game. They didn't have any receivers. Their offensive line went to crap, and their play calling was bad. So I feel like Kentucky's in store for a bounce back season. That's probably my answer. The Missouri trip, when you look at the schedule just on paper, it looks like it could be a get you game. But Josh Heupel's hung 60 on Missouri in back-to-back season. He has some sort of hatred for that university. So I don't think Tennessee will lose that game. Ultimately, I don't think they lose any of these. A&M, you mentioned Griffin. Josh Heupel 7-1 coming off a bye. A&M's coming to Knoxville after playing Alabama. That feels like it swings totally in Tennessee's favor. So it's a tricky question, but I'd probably say Kentucky.
Yeah, no, that's great.
All right, let's get to our last and final fill-in-the-blank question here. Griffin, blank is the one name people aren't talking about enough on Tennessee's roster that will contribute in a big way.
It's so tough. I'm like scrolling in the roster and I'm thinking, there's so many positions that are important, but I'm just going to say Karat Garland on the defensive line because we need depth. And yeah, it's an interesting pick, but who can step up? And Elijah Simmons on the sideline, Big O does his thing, but who can be his partner in crime? Who can maybe stop the run a little bit better, fill the gaps, and get after the quarterback? I think it's an interesting pick, and it's a veteran. I wanted to pick a senior who can show up for this team, lead this team, and be a cultural leader on and off the field. And that could be that guy.
Jace, Justin, who is your sleeper pick, if you will, on Tennessee's roster this year?
I mean, it's another new guy for me at the linebacker spot. Keenan Peely, I think that's a fun one. Of course, he's been talked about enough.
Yeah,
but I haven't heard too much about him besides him.
You're right.
Being an older guy, veteran presence. I'm really excited to see him in that linebacker core with Aaron Beasley, of course, who I think gets the praise that he deserves. He's been a rock up there, but I think he'll be an interesting one. He's a big dude, 6'3", 240. Bringing some beef to the middle. I like it.
This one troubles me a bit. This team's covered so well. It's kind of hard to find a diamond in the rough. It's kind of like we know everything. Griffin said it earlier in the first segment. We were talking a lot about Dante Thornton, Squirrel, right? But Brew McCoy is the guy. He's going to lead the team in receiving yards in all likelihood. And it gets a little lost, just because, this, like I said earlier, Dante Thornton's a shiny new toy. Squirrel Wright's a young stud. But Brew McCoy, he came to USC as a 5-star. I know it was a while ago, but he had a really good season with the Vols last year. Second in receiving yards, came up big in the clutch. He's probably going to be our main red zone guy. And, yeah, he could easily just have 12 touchdowns this year, just like I am.
Riley, what we got? Who's your sleeper? Seems like we're having some technical issues with Riley, maybe a little bit.
Hold on. There we go. You hear me now?
Weren't you?
There he
You
is.
hear me now? I was muted. You got me, man.
3 years now.
It's 2020.
Head in the game. Come on.
Hey, all right, here we go. I was saying to nobody at all, McAllen Castles and Jacob Warren, depending on who gets more snaps, whoever is the starting tight end, I think that's going to be a safety valve. Joe Milton's going to be able to look through, even when that pocket, or if that offensive line isn't as good as it was last year, things break down a little faster. Be looking for that tight end safety valve for Joe Milton to target whenever he needs.
I love that pick. I love
like
the tight
it.
end pick in general because I think the tight end position is about to just take off on Tennessee. We haven't really seen a tight end produce at a high level. I think it's going to at some point with Heupel. I mean, we got Ethan Davis here. I would pick him for this year to be a deep sleeper pick. Don't see him getting 500 yards or anything, but just contributing some big-time plays.
Yeah,
I'm
that's what I was
talking like
gonna
a
say.
35-yard game.
Yes.
And he's just gonna catch them. He's not blocking.
And I love, Riley, that you mentioned Jacob Warren, because before the show I was kind of talking about he's almost like a second captain to the offense when he's on the field. The dude's been around for so long, Knoxville boy, and he went to media day. I mean, it's all the important things you would want in a veteran leader on your offense, and that's Jacob Warren. Yeah, he might be a better blocker than he is catcher, but he has lots of different roles, and he might be a great supplement to the fiery, explosive Davis that can come in and who knows what he could do for this offense and surprise some opposing defenses.
Yeah, I think Ethan Davis could have some big splash plays. Might not happen every week, but I'm telling you, it's going to happen a couple of times. And you mentioned Jacob Warren. Man, he's so valuable to Tennessee's offense in ways people just don't even realize. So as far as just, sleeper, just being valuable in that sense, it's Jacob Warren for sure. Aaron Carter's another name. Now, he's been getting talked about quite a bit in the last couple of weeks, but do contribute at linebacker. The depth there is good, but I still could see a scenario where he plays some meaningful, takes some meaningful snaps this year as a true freshman. And then my big one, though, is Ramel Keaton, just because, Justin kind of touched on it with maybe Dante Thornton and Squirrel White just are so, popular right now among the fan base. But Ramel Keaton is a guy who makes plays consistently, is a great wide receiver for this team, and I think could have a 700 to 800 yard season this year.
He arguably had the best play for us last year, that diving catch he had against Florida.
Yeah. As far as just
one of them.
When you go and look up a highlight reel, that's one. So, all right, final thing, wrapping up Tennessee football talk, because we got to talk some NFL after this break. Record prediction, I'm going 10-2. I'm worried about the Kentucky game, but not worried about it enough to pick Kentucky to beat Tennessee. They beat them like 3 times since 85 or something like that. So I'm taking Tennessee in that game. I'm taking Tennessee everywhere else outside of Georgia, Bama. Griffin, what's your record?
I like it. I like 10-2. It's boring, but it's just the way I see it going. And I like the 10-2 pick because I like Tennessee taking care of business when they're supposed to be taking care of business, because that is almost a transitional sign. Okay, Heupel's in charge, his third year. Like, they can win the games that they're supposed to win. That's what Georgia has done and started to do, and now they're winning national championship. So I like the 10-2 record.
I'm going to agree with you, 10-2. I talked about Florida, but, Florida's just scary. I don't think we lose down there. It's just that swamp fever that we get every time we go down there is just like, it's evident every time we go down there. But I'll agree. I agree that Georgia is probably going to beat us. It's always tough to play in Tuscaloosa. That's one that I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on. But yeah, 10-2 feels like the safe pick here.
Anybody going to say 11? Any 11-1s?
Nah.
Not me.
Sam will be too fired up.
Not me. See, I think it'll be 10-2. I mean, we either lose to Georgia and Bama, or we beat one of them and then lose the game we should. So.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I'm also going to say 10-2. And for the same reason as Justin, even if they do steal one of those 2 big games, they'll drop one somewhere else. It's just the way it goes. But I also agree that if this is the one where they start taking care of the teams they need to take care of, that's the one thing I want to see from this season. Let's see the Vols do what they need to do, take care of business, and then move on from there as they continue to get talent.
Yeah, 10-2 would be a great season.
It would be such a win. Joe Milton, yes. 10-2 would be huge W. And, 10-2 across the board for our predictions. That means Tennessee is basically the SEC's version of Penn State. But tell you what, I'd rather have Coach Hype than James Franklin every day and twice on Sunday.
Oh, come on.
That's right. Anyway, We're going to take a quick break here on Rock Solid Sports, but when we come back, we got to talk some NFL trade news and a little VFL news too, which is also trade news, so it all lumps together when we come back here on Rock Solid Sports.
The Rock thanks the One Knox Sporting Club soccer team for their support. One Knox plays all of their home matches at Regal Soccer Stadium on campus, and the season runs into October with matches against Memphis, Chattanooga, Lexington, and more USL League One opponents. Tickets, including UT student tickets and game day info, is at oneknoxsc.com. WTK is proud to be a media partner with One Knox. Rock Solid Sports will be keeping up with One Knox soccer all season long. One Knox SC. We are one.
The Rock thanks Cool Beans, 1817 Lake Avenue, 1 block south of the Strip, for sponsoring and hosting the Monday night Rock Solid Sports broadcast at 7 p.m. Cool Beans is the pre- and post-game location for UT football and Knoxville's home for the NFL Sunday Ticket, Titans on the Big Screen, and more. Rock Solid Sports kicks off Monday Night Football with the shows live from 7 to 8 p.m. at Cool Beans. Cool Beans is 21 and over after 9 p.m. with a full and late-night menu. CoolBeansBar.com or their Facebook page.
Volunteer Radio thanks the UT Athletic Department and the men's basketball program for their support. Coach Barnes' 9th season on the Summit includes home games against Kentucky, Vandy, and more at Thompson Bowling Arena. Allballs.com. Student ticket info and login is at bigorangetics.utk.edu. That's TIX. Volunteer Radio says, go Balls basketball.
The Rock thanks Fieldhouse Social, the Wednesday home for Rock Solid Sports, for their support. American craft food, beer, and cocktails, plus a 25-foot big screen at University Commons Way. Fieldhouse Social welcomes sports fans and others alike to enjoy dishes like the citrus marinated chicken, grilled Faroe Island salmon, and smoked ribs. FieldhouseSocial.com or on Twitter and Facebook.
90.3 The Rock thanks the UT Athletic Department for their support. The 2023 football Vols will play home games at Neyland Stadium against SEC rivals South Carolina, Georgia, Texas A&M, and others. Allballs.com for info, with a link at WUTKradio.com. UT student ticket info is at bigorangetics.utk.edu. 90.3 The Rock says, go Vols!
The Rock thanks Knoxville Ice Bears Southern Professional Hockey League team for their support. Their 2023-24 home ice season from October through April includes games with Fayetteville, Huntsville, Roanoke, and more at the Civic Coliseum downtown. Single game and season tickets at KnoxvilleIceBears.com. Rock Solid Sports features Ice Bears Wednesdays with news and updates. Volunteer Radio says, go Ice Bears!
Hey kids, it's Derek
and Rod from the Funhouse.
Brought to you each Friday night by Raven Records and Rarities, located at 1200 North Central in Happy Hollow.
Join us each Friday as we kick off your weekend with classics from bands like The Descendants, The Stooges, My Morning Jacket, Mudhoney.
Newer stuff from Amel and the Sniffers, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, Wet Leg, and Turnstile. You'll also catch some local stuff.
Hip-hop, Americana, metal.
Who knows? We don't even know half the time.
Every Friday at 8 o'clock, right here on 90.3 The Rock.
Hey, Jimmy from Out Loud Knock. How would you describe the show?
Music, blah, 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 blah.
The Funhouse is co-sponsored by your downtown destination, ScruffyCity.com.
All right, everybody, welcome back into the Friday night edition of Rock Solid Sports here on WUTK The Rock. I'm your host, Jack Foster. We got our guy, Griffin Hadley, next to me. Across the glass, we got Jace Brown, fellow West Tennessee native. Love that. And we got Justin Clemmer and Riley Haltom, also a West Tennessee native. So
True.
Got some West Tennessee repping up in here tonight. I love it.
Sir.
But, guys, also, I love the NFL news we've got in the last couple of nights, and we got to get to it now. Let's start with the one that is fresh, a true Schefter bomb tonight, as he beat out Ian Rappaport by 1 minute. So, Ian, if you're listening to this, I know you are. I know you're listening to Rock Solid Sports on Friday night. You ain't got anything better to do. Be better, Ian. Come on. What are we doing? Get your head in the game. Season starts in a couple weeks. Anyway, Griffin, Trey Lance, or Trade Lance, if you want to call him tonight, has been traded from the 49ers to the Cowboys for a 4th-round pick. So the former number 3 overall pick back in the 2021 draft that the Niners gave a boatload of picks for is now gone for just a 4th-round pick, and he's going to back up Dak in Dallas. What do we think?
It's interesting because this guy has not played a lot of football. This guy's not played a lot of football in the last 3-4 years since his his junior year, sophomore year at North Dakota State. He has not played meaningful snaps, and that's just so tricky for a guy who's been injury plagued, and especially at the quarterback position. Anymore, your play on your rookie contract is going to dictate your entire career, or at least the first half of it. And we're seeing that with Trey Lance now, and he'll have an opportunity to be a backup with Dak. And obviously the Niners went a different direction when they brought Sam Darnold in, but this guy hasn't played meaningful snaps, and he didn't impress in the preseason, obviously. So it's going to be a challenge for him to work his way back up in this league.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be a challenge. And, obviously the Niners messed up by giving up that much and choosing Trey Lance because he hasn't panned out. But when you look at it from the Cowboys' perspective, Dak has had a tough offseason, tough preseason. The reports haven't been great about Dak. Do you see any scenarios where the Cowboys are 500 in week 7 or week 8 or something like that, and Dak's been struggling? Is there any controversy to be had, or is that just, something that's not going to happen? Riley, what we got?
I would say among Cowboys fans, it certainly would be, because from what I understand, Cowboys fans are in one of two camps: either Dak till they die, or they're about tired of Dak. And I think, as someone who watched Trey Lance going into the NFL, and because I'm an NFL draft nerd, I'm watching as much as I can of these top prospects going into the draft. I watched Trey Lance and I love what I saw in the film, but the thing is, there's not much of it. So I think the biggest thing for him is getting as much practice as he can, as much work as he can, to just show that he has something left, something that he can do in the league. That's my biggest thing, and I think there's a perfect place, or Dallas is the perfect place for him to go, both to learn and potentially have an opportunity later down the line.
I mean, I think, I agree with that. I think Dak is kind of like their locked-in guy. I think they have faith in him. And, I saw something on Twitter the other day. Granted, I don't know if it's true or not, but I saw where the number of snaps that Trey Lance has had in the NFL regular season, preseason, and throughout his college career was under 500. So I think that experience, if that is true, barring it's true, is a crazy. It's crazy that it's just that little. I would have thought at least maybe some in preseason NFL, but of course he's had some rough injuries, some rough spots. But he moves up a roster spot. He's a 2-string guy if he can beat out Ben DiNucci, of course. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting.
Right?
Yeah, it'll be interesting if he can rotate into that 2 spot, and if of course they need him, I think he can play well. But again, that lack of experience is just pretty alarming.
Fortunately for Trey Lance, I don't think Ben DiNucci's on the Cowboys anymore, so he doesn't have to go over the Nucci hurdle.
Yeah, I believe he was an XFL legend this past
XFL legend. But Trey Lance, he's 23 years old. Sorry. But, yeah, I get it. He hasn't played a lot of snaps, but it's not like he hasn't been seen by his coaches. I mean, they see him every practice. He's been there. This is his 3rd offseason. He started out last year, played first game in the monsoon. Second game, he breaks his ankle. It's just very unfortunate. I feel like that has a little bit to do with this whole debacle. I think I heard that the Niners he's not as athletic as they expected him to be. He's not as twitchy. He's not, kind of like a
swallow.
Yeah, he's not like a Justin Fields who they passed on, which just kind of threw everything out the window because his passing mechanics leave a lot to be desired. He just really has never put it together in a game that we've seen. Yes, he hasn't played many games, but even preseason games, he just hasn't shown out at all. And, that's just how these things happen. The Niners, it'd be a bad idea to keep that in your locker room. Darnold, he's probably bad too, but he is there. He's over him on the depth chart. So, you just kind of got to get that distraction out your locker room. And wow, a 4th-round pick, that's honestly more than I expected, but this is just one of the worst trades of all time. I think they gave up basically Jalen Waddle, picks that turned into Tyreek Hill and Bradley Chubb. We're all
right.
on the Dolphins.
All that, yeah. That ended up having.
For taking a flyer on Trey Lance, because it's hard to think, like, we're talking in retrospect, we're talking like after the fact. It's hard to think about that when you have this young, super young guy who could be freaky athletic, who hasn't played a whole lot of snaps in the FCS, right? So that's the Niners front office trying to figure it out. And we see that all too often on quarterbacks, especially quarterback classes in general, that less than half of them are going to work out and become franchise guys. That's just the way it is. And unfortunately for the Niners, they took a flyer on a guy in the 3rd overall pick who just hasn't panned out and caught the injury bug.
Right. When
Trey Lance came into the league, the number one thing he needed was snaps. And the thing he did was he could not stay on the field. And I think that's what has happened. And that's what's unfolded here with him.
And they're just winning games, too. Like, why would they take out Garoppolo in that situation? He was winning games, brought him to the Super Bowl that one year.
Right.
Brock Purdy, I mean, if he stays healthy, they might have been playing in the Super Bowl that year. But like Griffin said, this is all in retrospect, but let's just take a time capsule, jump back to I think it was the 21 draft. How does Justin Fields fall to the 11th pick and goes out is the 4th quarterback selected? I just don't understand. What did he do what more could he have done at Ohio State to be more respected than Trey Lance?
Okay, yeah, he's definitely better than Trey Lance.
So
let's not pretend that Justin Fields is some just mega stuff.
I agree, but no, as a prospect, he was way better than Trey Lance. I like Justin Fields, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe Trey Lance can, revamp his career in Dallas. We shall see. I'll hope the Niners add another guy because Purdy's elbow is still a noodle, which could be, and Sam Darnold's bad, which he is. Then they're gonna need a guy better than Josh Johnson to win them some important games. So,
hey, Titans fans, I'll give him Malik Willis for a 6th-round pick swap.
We got some VFL NFL news, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Josh Dobbs, the beloved Astro Dobbs, is on the move. He has been shipped to Arizona, which is a very intriguing destination.
Yes.
Griffin will tell you why. For what I say, Cleveland sent a 7th-round pick and Dobbs for a 5th-rounder. So, a little trade here from last night. But hey, Dobbs with Kyler sideline could start as soon as week 1, Griffin.
Absolutely. And we saw what he did in Tennessee, and we've seen that he's been able to run an offense, and he's been able to play pretty well. So it's exciting to see Dobbs in a starting role. I mean, he's a VFL, and he's a beloved VFL. And he was so awesome on campus here and on the field. So it's great to see him in an opportunity because that's all you want for a quarterback. You want them to have an opportunity to play because, if anything, there's only 32 quarterbacks that get to play every week. There's a lot more of a lot of other guys that have better opportunities than an NFL quarterback. And Josh Dobbs is that A-plus type of guy that you want to see have an opportunity. And here he is in Arizona, which might be one of the best opportunities in the league.
Yeah, you get Colt McCoy back there, of course, behind Kyler, who's not going to be with the start of the season. I think that's a very viable thing for Dobbs. He can very well work in that starting spot. It's just great. Of course, he's going to have to learn that new offense real quick. He's not going to have too much turnaround time. But yeah, it's a great opportunity for a VFL that, we all know and love. I remember the Dobbs nail boot. Just remember watching that with my dad about 10 minutes earlier. Whenever they hit that big Hail Mary, I gave up. I really did want to just walk away from that TV. But, seeing him being able to work for a starting spot and be able to just, compete for it is really exciting for him.
2 things. I'll go quick so Riley can speak. So Josh Dobbs, I don't think he's going to start for the Cardinals at all. I think Colt McCoy will probably –
What? Come on now.
I think Colt McCoy will probably lead the show until Kyler comes back. Maybe in Clayton Tune, the guy they got from Fresno State, I believe. Other thing,
Houston.
I think the Cardinals are going to be the worst team in the NFL. I think they're going to tank hard for Caleb Williams. I think Kyler might not even come back this year. And another thing, Josh Dobbs, great locker room guy, great culture guy. Get Kyler off Call of Duty.
Riley, what we got?
Yeah, I'm going to say if Kyler's not there, he definitely has a chance to start. You see what he did with the Titans, kept them competitive against Jacksonville and Dallas. 2 good teams. So I could definitely see him going and keeping the Cardinals competitive and certainly has a chance to win a starting spot over a guy like Colt McCoy or Clayton Tune.
Yeah, I mean, you can't tell me that. I know they're maybe trying to say, but you can't tell me that Colt McCoy gives them a better chance to win games than Josh Dobbs. I don't know.
It's just so late in the year.
I'm just not going to entertain that because I think Josh Dobbs is more talented than Colt McCoy. We know what Colt McCoy is. We still don't know maybe what Josh Dobbs can do. His sample size is still small. And if they're getting dogged by Washington in the first half, maybe we see Josh Dobbs take over in the second and then start from there on out. That'll do it for this Friday night edition of Rock Solid Sports. I'm your host, Jack Foster, for Griffin Hadley, for For Jace Brown, for Justin Clemmer and Riley Haltom on StreamYard. See you guys next week.